so jumping right in, step one is we want to architect our ideal week. All right, so we want to think ahead of time, how do we want our week to go? Before the rest of the world has been allowed to enter into it, we want to try to impose our will on this. I'm a big believer in agency. Like, you have agency, you have control, but you have to decide that you have that ahead of time. You can't decide after something has already crept in that I'm in control of the situation, because at that point you're not. Something else is. The thing is that you didn't account for, and that you didn't decide ahead of time that no, this is what I'm going to be doing. You didn't have a default setting, and therefore somebody else or something else got to establish your default. So we want to create a default setting by architecting the ideal week. And when I say ideal, I mean ideal. Ideal. What you architect in this step will never actually happen. You will never have a week that is ideal. You just won't. But if we can get closer to it and be intentional, then we will. Again, I think we're going to be shifting much closer to that goal of maximizing the time we have. So some kind of best practices, some themes, some big ideas to keep in mind. Number one, we want to theme each day. So think about the critical tasks that you do as a course of business, as a course of your career. What are those critical tasks? Think about meeting days. Like, are you in a role, are you in a position where you're asked to be in a lot of meetings? I know I am. Do you need to do things like recording? Do you need to be in front of a camera? I have to do that a fair bit. Do you need to write? Do you need to strategize? What are all the things that you do that make up your job, your career? Try to think about those things and how can we begin to batch them together. The next big best practice is time blocking. And time blocking is not a new concept. People have been talking about time blocking for a while. I'll show you some ways that I do it that I've found very, very helpful. The third best practice is to allow for buffer time. Acknowledge that sometimes that lunch meeting that you thought was going to end right at 1 will bleed over a little bit. Sometimes traffic happens. If you live in Austin, as we all do, traffic happens every morning, right? It's bad, it's awful. So allowing for some buffer time is what's going to prevent the chaos from creeping in towards the end of the day. Because I've seen people, and I've known people who've said, oh, I schedule every minute of my day. And I schedule them in 15-minute chunks or 30-minute blocks. And look, and they're showing us like, God dang, man, when do you pee? I don't understand, like, how is this going to work? Any little interruption and it's going to destroy everything else. Now, when we talk about time blocking, we want to actually build in reality. And then also build in free time. Build free time into your day. Time for free thought. Time for consideration. Also build it into your week. When do you get to do the things that you want to do? When do you get to work on those things that are important but not urgent? Right? When do you just get to refresh? I'm a big believer in budgeting 80% of your capacity. Time block, budget 80% of your capacity. We're going to leave a 20% kind of buffer in there that you can spend generally how you want. It'll get taken up, right? Something will likely creep in, but we want to make sure that we do build in at least 20% of free time. Now, a tool that I use to do this, I just created this particular document in Excel. I started at 6 a.m., which is about, generally when I wake up, and it goes until 8 or 9 o'clock at night. And so this is a tool that we'll send it out to you as well after this. But again, it's a time. Or is it up already?
You can download it.
Oh, great. It is on the page. You can download this particular document, create your own. If you're a big fan of Excel, you can download it as a PDF. As you can see, you're not going to be entering things into individual blocks when we get in. So I kind of like the idea of it being a single document, and I would encourage you to do this by hand if you can. Okay, so download it and do it by hand if you can. As we go through this process together. One other thing that I will say is you are one person, so don't have an ideal week for your work life and an ideal week for your personal life. It is an ideal week. Business and personal. Work and personal need to go on the same document. You are a whole person. You live one life. You experience one day, 1 hour at a time. Make sure that's reflected here.